want to bring to order the March 9th, 2021 regularly scheduled board meeting of the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. If I can please have a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair, I move that we convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing a student appeal, a student admission request into the district's adult education program, breach of contracts, and a contractual matter.
Second.
Motion's been made by Dr. Caution Parker and seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? And for the record, we have Dr. Scott here via phone. If we can is everybody logged in to vote on their devices? All right, if we can take the vote. All right. Ms. Agostini votes in favor. Dr. Scott?
Yes, I'm in favor today.
Ms. McFadden votes in favor. Motion passes 7-0. We'll now convene the executive session. At this time, I would like to reconvene the March 9th, 2021 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Richland 2 Board of Trustees. If I can have a motion for us to end executive session.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Mackey.
I move that the record reflect that we concluded executive session at 5:58 p.m.
Motion's been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? All in favor, if you can please vote. Dr. Scott, are you logged in or will you be voice voting?
I am logged in. I'm just waiting for the pop-up.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously 7-0. Next, we have our inspirational moment and Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Mackey.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening, our inspirational moment will be provided by Dr. James Ann Lynch Sheely, and immediately afterwards she will usher us into the Pledge of Allegiance. And just to share a little bit about her, we know what her day job is here now. She currently serves as Assistant Superintendent for Academics in Richland School District 2, where she formerly served as Chief Planning and Initiatives Officer. She has 45 years of experience where she's had the opportunity to serve as Director of Elementary Schools in Lexington District 1, Principal of Blue Rock Elementary, North Springs Elementary, and Founding Principal at Lake Carolina Elementary. Dr. Sheely holds a bachelor's degree from Newberry College, a master's degree and master's plus 30 from Winthrop University, and a Doctor of Education from Nova Southeastern University. She's the graduate of the Executive Leadership Academy, Center of Creative Leadership, and the Midlands Educator Leadership Experience. And she's received, too many awards to share here, but a few include the National Millikan Educator Award, which is a huge, like 5 huge deal. South Carolina National Principal of the Year, huge deal. 3 times Palmetto's Finest winner, National Blue Ribbon School, and the Alpha Delta Kappa Excellence in Education Award. An active member of SCASA, where she served as the president of the Elementary Principal Schools Association, and a member of Palmetto's Finest Selection Committee since the early 90s. Currently serves as the South Carolina Association on Supervision and Curriculum Development and the South Carolina Arts Alliance Board of Managers at Newberry College, and past chair of Spears Creek School Campaign Committee and St. Andrew's Lutheran Church. And I was just looking at some other stuff that I was so impressed that you have all of your own accolades, and you also have served as dissertation chair for multiple doctoral candidates through NOVA, and just amazed at all of the things that you've done. We appreciate you being here tonight. I know one of your biggest accolades is that you are such a gracious person, always kind, always gracious. And my little personal testimony is when, I think I've told you a million times, when my child had a chance to be under your leadership, had a principal as Dr. James Ann Lynch, and then you just up and left and went to open Lake Carolina Elementary. But they still had a wonderful educational experience, and we're just so glad to hear you. I know it's your last semester literally with us, so It's just good to hear from you, as always, and this is sort of kind of your parting words. So thank you for inspiring us this evening, as you always do. Bless you, Dr. Shealy.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. I appreciate it. Mr. Banning, members of the board, Dr. Davis. It is hard to imagine at this time a year ago, we were hearing about something called COVID. And here we are a year later with very different conversations. We talk about the symptoms of COVID, contact tracing, quarantining, oxygen levels, vaccines, cute masks, and now staying safe has a totally different connotation. And Don McAdams has become a household word. We have been through so many new experiences and decisions, one that there has been no roadmap for, or that we could call a friend who has successfully navigated a pandemic. In future years, what will our narrative of the pandemic sound like when we share? Every day, we've made decisions that have shaped our stories. Some decisions we know now were right, and others we may rethink. But this much we do know, as we have lived this life of COVID fatigue, the glimmers of hope have kept us moving forward. Those glimmers of hope can be hearing that a child said to her grandmother when she went back face to face, "Mimi, we got to sit in a circle, physically distanced with our masks on, and just talk." And it felt so nice. This story isn't over, and neither is ours. We have more decisions to make, more friends to meet, and more children to make sure are ready for their pathways of purpose. So no matter how one might feel right now, as Mr. Robert Jackson shared his candles with us at our last meeting, what we are doing to stay lit might our igniting include reaching out to others, practicing heart-healthy living, journaling, and making sure to stay in the present. Many of you know that my first husband was ill for a very long time. And one of our many emergency visits to the hospital landed us in a healthcare facility that we were not familiar with, talking to a doctor we didn't know with my husband, my boy's dad, on life support. Having this physician share that there was a 99.9% chance that Lou would not be going home was terrifying and devastating. As I struggled to find the right words, my oldest son said, "Sir, we just want you to care about our dad and do your best." When I think about this year, isn't that what we've done? We've cared and we've done our best. So no matter your department, your school, or your responsibility in the Richland 2 family, it is with a spirit of gratitude that I thank you for caring and for always doing your personal best. As we move forward lit and relishing in every glimmer of hope, as former First Lady Michelle Obama said, "You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all the world's problems at once, but don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own." Would you please stand with me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words of encouragement. Thank you. Next, we have our agenda. If I can have a motion to approve our agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
I
Mackey,
move to approve the regular board meeting agenda for March 9th, 2021 of the Richland 2 School Board of Trustees.
motion's been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Agostini.
and I believe I can just ask for this and not make a motion, but I would like to see that the consent agenda is separated.
Okay, we'll pull out you want the minutes from the consent agenda? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes,
Okay, so you would like for the minutes from the consent agenda pulled out separately? All right.
please, thank you. And
Mr. Chair.
just a point of order,
Yes, ma'am.
is there any way we can get any more light in here? It's very dark in this room.
Yes, we can
Is
get
that-
more light.
Can we?
Yes,
thank
Dr.
you.
Davis?
Mr. Chair, just for, I think for appropriate parliamentary procedure practices, a motion has been made. That motion has been seconded. This would be an amendment to that motion.
Okay,
In
so we
order
do
to
need that.
pull out the consent agenda
Okay.
item from the approval.
From the standard minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
But as a reminder, we are approving the agenda. So the consent agenda, there's a motion that will need to be made to approve the consent agenda, which is a separate motion. So we haven't gotten to the consent agenda yet.
But we can pull it out now, can't we? Or we have to pull it out at the consent agenda?
We're on the approval of the agenda now. So that
Okay.
approval has to be, that approval was, motion was made to approve the agenda. It was second. Now we're at the point of discussion. Once we approve the agenda, when we get to the consent agenda, a motion can be made to then separate the minutes from the consent agenda, which is a separate thing. So you're moving the consent agenda now while we're on the motion for the agenda. Those are two separate items on
All right,
our agenda.
that's my fault. I asked Ms. Agostini to do that at this time. So we'll move that, Ms. Agostini, when we get to the consent agenda to pull that out. So we're now back at, we have a motion for the approval of the agenda and a second. Is there any other discussion at this point? All right, with that, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 6 yes, 1 no. All right, we are now at the consent agenda. And so I guess, Dr. Davis, to make sure I'm clear on this, Ms. Agostini can go ahead and make the motion to pull out that one item, approve the consent agenda with separating out the minutes.
That would be my recommendation, is to make a motion to approve the consent agenda without the approval of the minutes. You want to approve the minutes separately.
Right. Ms. Agostini, is that, I'm not going to ask you to make any particular motion, but is that a motion you'd be comfortable with, or do you want us to make a motion for the, okay.
That's fine with me, but my understanding is, and I'm not an expert on Robert's rules, but if one person up here does not agree with the consent agenda or an item in it, that it should be pulled out and looked at separately where it is upon the agenda.
Okay.
But this works.
Okay, if you'll, Ms. Agostini, if you'll go ahead and make that motion then.
So I'd like to make the motion that we approve the item 5.3 employment recommendations, releases, and in-district transfers.
All right. Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Sorry, Dr. Scott, she got in before you. Do we have any discussion? With that, if we can please take the vote. Hand vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Dr. Scott, if you'll voice vote.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. All right. And if I can now have a motion on item 5.2, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
I move to amend the board minutes of the February 23rd, 2021 regularly scheduled board meeting on item 10.2, motion by Lindsay Agostini, comma, no second, and add, asked for by board chair.
Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Scott. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Agostini.
Thank you. The reason why I'm asking this, when you look back at, or when one looks, I don't mean you per se, but when someone looks back at this, it appears as if there was just reflective of no second, that nobody stood up or supported this, when in fact, after I made the motion, discussion took place immediately, and a second was not asked for. So I would like it to be reflective that there was no second asked for by the board chair. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion is made by Ms. Agostini. if you will please raise your right hand. Dr. Scott, if you'll voice vote.
Yes.
Okay, I see. And all against, raise your right hand or voice vote. Motion fails 4 no, 3 yes. If I can have another motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Ms. Mackey's made a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, if we can please, can we digitally vote on this, Alina, or you want us to hand vote? Hand vote. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand or voice vote. All against?
No. Again.
Okay, Rashawn, I couldn't see. So, Ms. McFadden, we're voting, Ms. Mackey made a motion to approve the minutes as presented by the district. That's the motion. So it was seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. So let me go back to that vote again. All in favor, raise your right hand to make sure we're clear on the motion. Okay, all against, raise your right hand or voice vote.
Again.
Okay, so motion passes 5 yes, 2 no. All right, we'll now move on to public participation. I have no one signed up for public participation at this time. So we will move on to item 7, our executive session items. If I can please have a motion on student appeal.
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Holmes,
I make a motion that we accept the district's recommendation.
okay, motion's been made by Dr. Holmes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes unanimously, 7 yes, 0 no. Item 7.2, if I can have a motion on student admission request into the district's adult education program.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Holmes,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the student admission into the adult education program.
motion's been made by Dr. Holmes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. Motion passes 7 yes, 0 no. There is no item to vote on item 7.3, and we have no further items as discussed in 7.4. We'll move on now to item 8, old business action requested. Item 8.1, approval of the 2022-2023 school year calendar. Dr. Davis. Yes, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Item 7.3 is the breach of contract.
Oh,
That is a voting item, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
apologize. I had contract on my mind and different. I'm sorry. If we can return to item 7.3, if I can have a motion on the breach of contract.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
before we get a motion, I would like to pull out employee number 1.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion on the other individuals?
I'll make a motion to uphold the district's recommendations for employee numbers 2, 3, and 4.
Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Scott. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote. And you want us to hand vote, Zelina? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. And voice vote. Motion passes unanimously. If I can have a motion on breach of contract for staff number 1. If I can have a motion regarding the breach of contract for individual number 1 on our list.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we uphold the district's recommendation for number 1.
Motion's been made by Dr. Holmes. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Caution Parker. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, if we can please have the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand or voice vote.
Yes.
All opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6 yes, 1 no. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for saving me there.
Yes, sir.
We will now move on to item 8.1, approval of the 2022-23 school year. Dr. Davis.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our viewing public and those of you in attendance this evening, we are presenting to you asking for approval the 2022-2023 school year calendar. We made a proposal of this calendar at our last board meeting, and so we're bringing this proposal to you now for approval of our calendar for the 2022-2023 school year.
All right, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Did I hear Ms. Agostini down there? Or?
Yes.
Ms. Agostini?
I move to approve the recommended 2022-2023 school year calendar.
Motion's been made by Ms. Agostini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, we'll have the vote.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we complete 7.3?
We did.
Okay. I just
Yes,
wanna-
ma'am. We
Okay.
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Motion passes 7 yes, 0 no. Passes unanimously. Next, we have item 8.2, approval of the ad hoc legislative committee recommendations. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Dr. Holmes.
I'd like to make, let's see, sorry. Is it on?
It is on.
It is, okay. I'd like to make the motion that the board set the following as a legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session. Teacher pay and increases. H 3609, S 173, S 324, S 317, S 315, S 260. Teacher certification contracts. S 350, S 328. School calendar. S 325, H 3318. Student testing requirements. S 315. Governance and structure of schools and school boards. S 203, S 201, H 3610. Diversity, equality, and inclusion matters for students and staff, H 3240, S 60. Financial support and funding for schools and districts, H 3976. This will include the current bills noted in the amendment attachment on the board agenda, as well as any future legislation that the board may deem appropriate for the 2021 legislative session. That's the first the first motion.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Dr. Holmes, seconded by Ms. Mackey. I do have a question, Dr. Holmes. Do any of those include the, and I didn't follow all of them, but do any of those include the earnings limitations?
The retirement and retention, no, they did not, Mr. Manning. We separated those out.
Okay.
And we have a second motion for you.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear that did not, because I didn't hear all the ones listed there, so. Thank you. Okay.
So let me be clear, we're going to have two different motions on this?
Yes, Ms. Agostini, we're going to have two different motions, and the reason that we have two different motions is a conflict for one of our board members and their employment. So we have to separate the motions out.
So, Dr. Holmes, will you list the ones that you're pulling out separate so that we're aware of the
Absolutely.
ones that we're pulling out?
Yes, the ones that we will pull out are retirement and retention ones, and that would be H30, 32, S328, and S168. All of those have to do with retirement and retention.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Ms. Agostini, did you have a further question or comment?
Yeah, well, tell me again, I don't need you to read the numbers, but tell me again the wording that you used for the motion.
I would like to make a motion that the board set the following as legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session. This would include the current bills noted in the attachment to the board agenda, as well as any future legislation that the board may deem appropriate for the 2021 legislative session.
So are you stating that the way that these bills are presented here, this is what we are supporting?
Yes.
Okay, and that we actually support this bill. We're not going to focus on this, but come at it with a different approach. We're supporting it as presented. We're in agreement with what it is stated here.
No, that's not what we're saying. What
Okay,
we're saying
thank you.
is
That's
that
what I
a
need
board
clarification on.
member has a job conflict and cannot vote on specific bills. So we have to set them
That's not the
apart.
question. I'm
But then
sorry.
I don't know what you're asking me. What are you asking me?
I'm asking, it's separate from your two different motions.
Okay.
That when you're saying make this legislative priorities, the list that you just gave, that we are supporting these bills
Yes.
as they are presented. So,
No.
do you understand what I'm saying?
I
That we're-
Yeah, I
like,
think-
that
I mean, I don't think I understand what you're saying.
I think, Ms. Agostini and Dr. Holmes, if I can maybe.
I'm sorry.
We are supporting these bills that are provided. The bills may change. Libby, do
correct.
you want to?
But their position, and I'm just going to say, for example, if I didn't agree with extending the $10,000 to $50,000, what we're saying is what you've got here, we are actually supporting. This is our, or we're interested in working on.
Dr. Holmes, can we let Ms. Ruth speak and then come back?
Okay.
The bills that are listed relate to the topics. The topics are the legislative priority areas. We have not established really a statement of support one way or the other for the bills, but we have identified the areas that are listed there. Dr. Holmes, teacher salaries, finance. So as of today, the bills that we have identified that are in that area, so there may be a bill in there that we as a district or as a board do not support. There may be a bill in there, uniform start date. It would be a bill that we do support. That is really looking at the general topic areas and letting you know that as of today, those bills are related. There's one in there that deals with the education scholarships bill, which we know is really a voucher bill. That is something we have said as a district, that's not what we support. So we are setting these priorities as we are watch these bills and determine the best way to advocate for or against them.
Okay, I was confused because I think at the last meeting, we stated that these were not the bills that we were supporting as a board yet. These were the ones that we brought forward as a committee. And that's why you all were given these ahead of time to go through and look at, and if there were any issues or if you wanted to add any, that's why they were given ahead of time. So that's why, I'm sorry, Ms. Agostini, that's why I did not understand your question. I thought that was clear from the last meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Rue, for your clarification. So we're not supporting these. These are ones that we're pursuing and taking interest in.
Yeah, that's what we
We're
said
not
at the
taking a
last
position.
meeting, Ms.
Thank you.
Agostini. Yes. Okay. So,
All right.
Mr. Manning?
Yes, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, hand vote, all in favor, please hand vote, voice vote, Dr. Scott. All
Yes.
right. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. If I can now have a motion on the bills that were pulled, or the related bills that were pulled out.
Yes, you may, Mr. Manning.
Dr.
I would like to make a motion that the board set the following as legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session. H 3032, S 328, S 168 in the areas of retirement and retention. This would include the current bills noted in the attachment to the board agenda, as well as any future legislation that the board may deem appropriate for the 2021 legislative session.
Motion's been made by Dr.
Second.
Holmes. Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Mackey. For the record, I will be abstaining from this because this does conflict with my employer. So I will be abstaining and not give an opinion one direction or the other publicly on these bills.
Thank you, Mr. Manning.
Do I have any other discussion? All right, with that, if we can have the vote, all in favor, raise your right hand or voice vote.
Yes.
All opposed, and anybody abstaining? Thank you. So the motion passes 6 yes, 1 abstained. Thank you, Dr. Holmes. That's quite an achievement that we have there. Thank you for all the work that you've done, the
Board
committee.
effort.
Thank you for, again, our committee members, Ms. Mackey, Ms. McFadden, Dr. Holmes, and Ms. Root for all of the effort that was put into making that happen. All right, we now have new business, no action requested. Dr. Davis, item 9.1, superintendent highlights.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our audience that are viewing us during our board meeting and those of you in attendance, I'm happy to present the superintendent highlights for the March 9th school board meeting. Tonight's highlights begin with phase 3 of our reopening school plan and vaccinations. Phase 3 of our reopening schools plans will begin Monday, March 22nd. Disease activity in the county is low based on the recent disease activity report released by SCDHEC. Students will come to school 5 days a week. All students will have half days on Fridays to provide teachers with additional planning time required for dual modality. Schools will continue to provide e-learning for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. As we approach March 22nd, schools will share information with parents and students about their specific preparations for the start of phase 3. Parents, please be on the lookout for this communication from your child's school. Through our partnership with Providence Health, Richland 2 will begin the process of vaccinating employees, including Service Solution and Sodexo staff, later this month. Vaccination clinics will be held at Westwood High School on March 25th and 26th, and again on April 15th and 16th. These will be asynchronous e-learning days for our students. Meal services during COVID-19. I'm pleased to report that through the uncertainty of COVID-19 and school closings that began taking place around this time last year, Richland 2 continued to support students and families by serving necessary meals from March 16th, 2020 to March 4th, 2021. Richland 2 served more than 734,000 breakfast meals, 830,000 lunches, and 22,000 snacks. That's over 1.5 million meals served. So kudos to our food services department and all the volunteers and everyone who has made this so successful. Service Solutions donates to the district. Service Solution has been our district custodial provider for almost a quarter of a century, and we are grateful for their ongoing partnership. For the last 4 years, they have provided funding for 10 scholarships. They also support our Richland 2 Ready to Read initiative, which gives books for summer reading to our Richland 2 kindergartners through second grade students. We could not have our normal presentation ceremony for the $25,000 check at a board meeting due to COVID-19 concerns. However, we do have a video of this year's presentation featuring Mr. Williams presenting the funds to the district.
I'm Maria Owens, Director of Strategic Partnerships for Richland 2, and I'm here today with our Superintendent, Dr. Baron Davis, and with Mr. Sim Williams, who's the Resident Regional Manager for Service Solutions. Today, we celebrate our ongoing 24-year partnership with our custodial service provider, Service Solutions. Mr. Williams has a presentation to make today to Richland School District 2.
It gives me great pleasure to present Richland District 2 with the check this afternoon, and we look forward to many more years of a great partnership here with Richland District 2.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Richland School District 2, the entire administrative staff, and all of our students, parents, and our community, we are so grateful to accept this check from our Service Solutions partners in order to help us continue to fund our scholarship programs as well as our Richland 2 Ready to Read programs. This is the 4th year of this partnership where we received these funds. $20,000 was to be set aside for scholarships for our students. That will be 10 $2,000 scholarships that will be set aside. Service Solutions employees, children will be given an opportunity to have first priority in these scholarships, and then the remaining money will go to any other Richland 2 student who qualifies to receive the scholarship. Any dollars is set aside to help us with our Richland 2 Ready to Read campaign. This campaign was created to assist us in providing reading materials for our K-2 students throughout our school district to encourage them to continue to read during the summer months to help reduce summer slide. So on behalf of our entire school district and our Board of Trustees, we say thank you to our Service Solution partners for this charitable donation. Again, thank you to our Service Solution partners for that charitable donation. It will definitely go to good use. The NASP Presidential Award. During the uniquely qualified work of a school psychologist for more than 4 decades has not gone unnoticed for Dr. Sandra Manning. Recently, in a virtual conference, she received the 2021 Presidential Award from the National Association of School Psychologists. She currently works at Blythewood Academy and the Richland 2 Virtual School. Congratulations to Dr. Manning. School-wide AVID distinction. Congratulations to Principal Sean Bishton and his team at Muller Road Middle School and Miss Melinda Taylor and her team at E.R. Wright Middle School for their achievements in closing the opportunity gap. They have been redesignated as AVID school-wide sites of distinction for preparing all students for college readiness and success. This is the highest rating a school can achieve within the AVID certification continuum. So again, congratulations to our 2 schools and our principals. And our last highlight for this evening is Arts and Advocacy Week. In a nationwide arts education town hall, Spring Valley High School senior Nemisa Samantha Pudi shared her student voice on the importance of arts education. She highlighted her experiences and ideas on building a pipeline to foster future educators and strengthen the field. The National Arts Educational Association hosted the event last month in honor of Arts Advocacy Week. Mr. Chair, members of the board, that completes the superintendent's highlights for March 9th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I particularly, as a point of privilege, would like to say appreciate Dr. Manning, being that she is my aunt. So I appreciate the work that she's done in psychology. She uses that psychology on the family too, I promise you. So, Dr. Caution Parker.
I'd also like to say kudos to Dr. Manning. She served at Denton Middle School while I was principal there as one of our school psychologists. Outstanding.
Thank you. What most don't know is she actually started the family politics as a board member in Richland 1. She was the first one to be elected before her husband, my uncle, and then my tenure here on the board. So when recognizing women in history, she certainly set a high bar for the family. Next, we have item 9.3, policy GBGAB. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped right over item 9.2. Dr. Davis, item 9.2, proposal for the budget surplus.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Mr. Chair and members of the board, we have before us this evening, we would like to share our proposal for our budget surplus. Sharing that proposal will be our Senior Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Harry Miley. Dr. Miley.
Good evening, everyone. It's always nice to have good news. I'm usually Dr. Doom, so I've got some good news tonight. Well deserved, I know. Last board meeting, we had our auditor present our results from our fiscal year 1920 audit. And in that audit, we had a clean audit, which was the good part, very good first part. And the second good part was that we had a surplus of $11.3 million from our operating. That is, our revenues were $11.3 million above our expenditures. We've had a surplus in many years past, but last year was the first year that I've been here where we took some of that surplus and allocated it for other purposes. If you remember last year, we had about the same amount. We allocated about $10 million for various things, supplies to schools, some media arts funds, a bonus for full-time employees, and you allocated $3.5 million to our capital projects fund. We're recommending, we have about $11.3 million in surplus, and we're recommending allocating that again for two main purposes. One would be bonuses for full and part-time employees. We know that employees have worked hard. We know they haven't gotten a step increase this year. The legislature is discussing that for teachers. And given the amount of funding, Dr. Davis is recommending that we allocate and give all full-time employees a one-time bonus that nets them $1,000. That's around $1,600 bonus. After taxes, it'll net them about $1,000. Second, last year, we did not include part-time employees. We're recommending that we include part-time employees. And part-time employees covers a broad range of our hardworking people. Some are people that work 1 or 2 days a week. Some of them actually work 40 hours a week, every week of the year. But they're not full-time employees. They're not annualized, but they're still very vital employees to the district and provide a great service. So we're recommending that those part-time employees receive a net bonus of $500. That's about $800 a person. After taxes, they would net $500. That's about $6.5 million total. And we also recommend that in order to help us, which we haven't had to do for several years now, we have not had to issue any 8% bonds to help us pay for our infrastructure and our maintenance, carpeting, things that aren't in the bond referendum, but still need to be done. Painting, carpeting, additional boilers for older units. And we're recommending the same thing, to allocate $3.5 million to capital projects that will help us from borrowing more money in the market, which helps us relieve and not put any more pressure on the taxpayer in terms of our debt service. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Let me get Dr. Holmes first and then Dr. Scott.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Holmes, will you hit your button, please? No, you got to hit the button. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
Dr. Valley, are they taxing us at that 23% or 24%?
We have to tax everyone at that 22% rate for bonuses. Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Okay. I wanted you to say that out loud
Yes.
because the reason I'm saying that because people's like, well, how did it get so low? But that's the reason because
ma'am.
you have to tax it at that.
That's not our decision. That's the law. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted you to make sure that you said that out loud.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I didn't mention that there's about $1.3 million that we would contribute to the fund balance. We won't be using all the surplus this year. Thank you. Dr. Scott?
Yes, Dr. Malley, thank you for that report, but I do have two questions. The first question is I'm very excited to know that we're going to finally give our full-time and part-time employees a bonus. But I was just wondering, through this COVID and this pandemic, we've had awesome substitutes that have been a part of the district that have filled in for our awesome teachers who've been out, whether it's with COVID or on medical leave. And I was wondering if you guys consider maybe giving a small bonus to some of our permanent substitutes or substitutes that may have invested at least 90 days or more within the school district. Was that a consideration?
We did discuss substitutes, but we also discussed had just given them the extra pay that we allocated for the COVID period. And so that's what we have decided to do with substitutes. Correct.
Okay, and bus drivers, are they included in this permanent and part-time employees?
Yes, ma'am. Bus drivers, there are some full-time. The majority of our bus drivers are full-time, but we do have some bus drivers that are part-time, and they'll be receiving the part-time bonus.
Okay, and my final question is, how did you come up with the $3,500,000 for the general fund reserve for the building fund? How did you come up with that amount versus $2 million or $1 million?
That's about what we have spent for the last several years. And so it was an amount that we felt like, I mean, we could spend 50, but we felt like that was an amount that helped us maintain our maintenance with still not allocating all of the surplus to the capital projects. We feel like that is adequate to fund our needs for the next coming year.
And then how would this be prioritized with the schools? Will the principals just give you a list of needs that they have, and how would that be prioritized?
We actually, what we will be doing is following the same process that we've done, I know since I've been here, with, in essence, building our list of needs for our 8% borrowings. And Will Anderson and his crew will get input from all the school sites on what their needs are. We'll also look at some of the infrastructure needs that may be there that may not be a want by a school, but perhaps might need to be done at a school. And that's where that list will come from.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Agostini.
Thank you. I have a few questions. First of all, where do we stand on our current budget? You know, about a year ago, we were talking about a continuing resolution. We were going to be funded the same amount of money. A question I asked probably 6 months plus ago was, how are we being funded based upon the actual money that we got last year, the $301 million, or based upon per student?
Our current budget is $301 million.
Okay, and we're receiving funds?
We're still on the state, well, the state is still on the continuing resolution. And what we were
right now. I asked last time, just to be clear, in our reserve funds or the excess funds?
our fund balance.
Yes.
Our fund balance at the end of FY 1920 was $81.2 million.
Okay, and that was in the fiscal year, so last summer?
Last June 30.
Okay.
Of that, 11.3 of that was from last year's operating. Okay. So what we're recommending is to spend 9.95 million, allocate 9.95 of that 81.2 for these projects that I just outlined, the bonuses and the capital fund. That will leave us $71.2 million in our fund balance.
And we need 2 months operating costs, 2 to 3?
It's generally, our board policy recommends 2 months operating. That's roughly $50 million.
Okay.
Right now, for reasons like I just outlined in terms of the state allocation, we feel like that's a bare minimum. After all, we're spending about $25 million a month, and it doesn't take much of a hiccup for us to exceed that. So we're comfortable right now with having our fund balance above that 16.6%.
Okay, and the building fund, did we spend all of the money from last year, or is that a fund that's
We are spending
Building.
it. Yes, ma'am. We are spending it.
Okay, so the anticipation is that we'll use this money in the next year to
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And then my final question, just for clarification. So a bonus is taxed separately and considered different than normal income?
Correct. It's,
Okay.
you might be in a lower tax bracket, but when it's called a bonus, the law requires us to tax it higher.
So somebody at a higher tax level bracket, the 25% would
Still
not?
gets taxed at 22, yeah, the same bonus. Every bonus is taxed the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other board members? I'd like to say I appreciate the thought that went into this. I remember getting some phone calls and emails the last time we did a bonus about a part-time staff, and so I appreciate the thought that went into adding them this year to that, to the bonus structure. Also, the fact that we were thoughtful about making sure that the end result in their pocket is what we intended with the discussion that's going on the tax rate. The building fund, again, I don't want to let that slide, that by reducing the 8% spend, we create room in our debt millage so that as we spend our bond money, we don't exceed the current debt millage rate. And so it really is a long game to help us maintain our debt, service debt, in that millage. And it's something we talked about a long time, that we needed to offload some of the expenditures in 8% anyways, like IT. Onto the general budget. This gives us a way to do that between the bond and the money that we're transferring. So I think that I don't want to underestimate how important that is in the budget and overall financial management. So I appreciate you doing that. What I would like to see at some point, I know the board is no longer involved in approving the items that are for the building fund like we did with 8%. I'd still like to see a report at some point on how that money is expended.
But we'll be glad to do that.
Just because it's the idea that we used to look at it.
Sure.
I think it would be good for the board to at least understand where that money's going for capital expenditures and improvements.
We'll be happy to do that and include that.
All right. I don't know the timing of that, but if you could just work on that.
We can include that, and as soon as we get it fixed up, I'm sure we can include that in a board brief or something. And I would like to add your comment about the debt service. I think our team's real happy that we have not had any debt service millage increase in our debt service millage rate in this district. And even though we're in our third year and borrowed already $250 million, we feel really proud of that. And this type of effort has helped that. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing an opportunity for foreign privilege. I want to thank Dr. Malik for the presentation that you just shared. I think it's important that did kind of come across a little bit mumbled, but I think that is a very important piece for us to continue to share with our community. And I hope that we all have an opportunity to share that with our community, that we have not had to raise the taxes as a result of the bond, and what we've done strategically as we've been good stewards of the money of the taxpayers of Richland County and Richland School District 2 in particular. And not having to, and the space or the gains we're getting as a result of our 8% and not having to extend that debt to our taxpayers. So I think that's important to continue to share for our community, and also as far as the board policy as it relates to maintaining our fiscal position, our financial position on fiscal responsible levels of reserve. It is the equivalent of 2 to 3 months average operating costs, and which is what we have, I think, or at least what we're shooting to maintain. So, again, thank you for the report and. For all that you and the team has done to ensure, as we toil over how to best allocate this funding, taking care of our employees, taking care of our community, and at the same time planning for our future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I will say that I'm sure that before to stop the phone calls, we are planning on trying to get these bonuses. It takes a full payroll run for our payroll folks who also do other payroll runs. We're shooting to have them sometime in April or May. If the legislature passes the step increase, we'll be doing that in June. So we're not going to make a promise right now exactly when it will be, but we will certainly be before June, and we'll process it as fast as we can.
Well, so and of course, that Dr. Mile, I want to say that's pending board approval, which.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I knew that.
I'm getting a little ahead of myself.
Pending board approval, which
that little part,
just that little piece there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we didn't skip that. Yes, sir. Dr. Davis.
Just for the record, I want to be clear. I want to make sure I didn't misstate something. Board policy states 2 months. Our practice and what we're trying to accomplish is 2 to 3 months to give ourselves some room when it comes to our surplus. So I want to be clear that I wasn't misquoted and I didn't say something incorrect and stated for the record. Thank you.
Those of us who have to make the checks good encourage the 3 months. So
yes,
that's
sir.
what we'll be
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next, we have item 9.3, policy GBGAB, lactation accommodation. Dr. Davis. And actually, let's do items 9.3, 9.4, policy GCOA, evaluation of instructional staff, 9.5, Title IX policy, which includes rescinding GBAA and GJIAA. We'll include all of those together.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have our Senior Chief Human Resource Officer, Mrs. Shawn Williams, who's going to present policies GBGAB, GCOA, and as well as our Title IX policy. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Good evening, Mr. Chair and the board. Tonight we have policy GBGAB, which is our lactation policy, a lactation accommodation policy. This policy does come as a result of the South Carolina Lactation Act that was signed into law in June of 2020. The content of the policy reflects the district's long-standing practice of providing lactation accommodations. Changes recommended by the School Board Association model policy by district administration are highlighted in yellow.
All right, board members, questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Agostini.
Thank you. So is this a state statute? We're required by law to do this?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, then my question is, because I'm reading it and it seems to conflict. The last sentence of the first paragraph, in accordance with state law, the district will provide reasonable break time and reasonable space for staff members to express milk. Then the third paragraph, last sentence says an employer is not required to provide break time if doing so would create an undue hardship on the operations of the employer.
So what we do, we have to provide a break time. So we work with the staff member as well as their principal to have a time frame of lactation. So that way we can properly cover our staff member as well as our students.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm reading this, it seems like however, that we're not required to do it. I mean, that if it's a hardship, we're not going to do it. But yet I'm hearing we're required by law to provide it. It's
Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, please hit your button too.
Man, point of
Dr. Davis.
order. Mr. Manning, members of the board, these are proposals made by by administration. If there is a recommendation for a change in the policy, administration stands ready to make any adjustments to the changes as the board see fit. And we'll, of course, bring these policies back to you all for second reading. So we're just proposing these changes as of right now. And we're looking for input from the board on how the board should deem that the policy should be written.
Mr. Chair, I think it's
let me let Ms. Agostini finish and then I'll recognize Ms. Agostini.
Well, and I thank you, Dr.
Did you want to make a motion to change or?
Well, I'm just trying to understand it. If what the intent is that we're required by law to do that, then I would like to make a motion to strike that last sentence of the third paragraph.
The intent is not, the intent.
I'm sorry, Dr. Davis.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The intent is to give the employee and his or her supervisor an opportunity to work on the accommodations of when you would have the accommodation met to do so. So that it wouldn't be done, say, for example, in the middle of a classroom, middle of class time, or during the time that you're out supervising students at recess. Those things, those details of how that's supposed to be worked out, if you don't have some type of a structure in that, a person can say, I have the right to do this whenever I deem necessary to do so. And so that reduces the opportunity for conflict. As of my knowledge to this point in day and time, I've not received any information or been a part of information where an employee was denied the opportunity to do so if they needed to lactate.
Ms. Agostini, did that clear that up for you, or?
No, but please continue on. I mean, I understand what Dr. Davis is saying, that we don't want somebody to say every 20 minutes, I need to go and express their milk, but somehow I need to think about it. But I do thank Dr. Davis for his response. I agree with what he's saying in that sense. I'm not sure that last sentence actually reflects what he said, though.
Ms. Mackey?
I'm thinking it's a matter of, first of all, I'm thankful that this law was enacted last year. I can remember things were very different when I had to go through this, 24 years ago. It was very different. So I'm appreciative that the state was even accommodating. And I think it's a matter of interpretation. When I read through this policy, I understood exactly what the intent was. That we are working with the employee to provide a reasonable break. However, if you want, your break to last through 7 class periods or so, I'm being, I understand. So I think it's a matter of interpretation. I understood what it meant as it was read, as it was written. So I think it's just a matter of how it's interpreted.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mackey.
Ms. Mackey, are you done?
Done. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Holmes.
Okay. What I was looking at, I kind of understand what Ms. Agostini is saying. It does kind of contradict itself a little bit. So maybe a solution to that would be, it says, instead of required a break time at times that would not, agreed upon times that would not create a hardship, on agreed upon times that would not create a hardship.
Dr. Holmes, would you like to make a motion regarding that?
If that's what you want me to do.
I do. Yes, if you would like to see that change, we need to have a motion to that.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that instead of saying an employer is not required to provide break time, maybe should say an employer is not required to provide break times at times that would create undue hardships on the operations of the employer.
All right, motion's been made by Dr. Holmes. I have a second. Second by Ms. Mackey. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Dr. Scott, if you'll voice vote, please.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Mackey, will you raise your hand higher for me? Thank you. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, any other discussion on the policies, GBGAB, GCOA, Title IX, any of those policies?
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Holmes?
I'm sorry, but I did have one question on policy. It was the military one. That's the JIAAA. Is that correct? I just had a question. If we're going to accept when the student comes in, and I think the policy is real well written, but I did have one concern. When it got to the bottom, it talks about if a student was not going to be accepted into like the gifted and the talented program, that they might have to go through some other district requirements. But if we're accepting them into every other program at face value, why would the gifted and talented program have to have an exception for them not, if they were, in other words, if they were gifted and talented at school A, why would we not just accept them if we're going to accept everything else about them coming into the school district? Why is there a rider on there about maybe evaluations, our own evaluations on them. We're not doing that for any other program, so I kind of don't think it should be for the gifted and talented program also.
Well, we're rescinding that policy.
Okay, you're rescinding this?
JIAA is being rescinded.
Oh, we're getting rid of this? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well, okay, that's perfect then. We need to get rid of it.
We were doing what you wanted us to do and rescinded the policy.
Well, you shouldn't have asked me. I just wanted to make sure, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
thank you for clearing that up because Dr. Holmes, you had me really confused thinking that I completely misunderstood what was going on. But the Title IX policy that we're making reference to, is that policy AC is replacing these two?
Yes, ma'am.
ACD.
In Title IX policy in August of 2020, the board approved a comprehensive Title IX policy, policy ACA. That reflects the U.S. Department of Education most recent Title IX changes. The comprehensive policy applies to both students and employees and was developed in consultation with our attorneys. Prior to the adoption of policy ACA, there were two separate Title IX policies in our policy manual, one for staff and one for students. It is the district's administration's recommendation that the board rescind the separate staff and student policies as the new policy is comprehensive and applies to both students and staff.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, further questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on now to item 9.6, update on human resources. Dr. Davis. Oh, I'm sorry, was there additional comment?
Clarify something?
Yes, ma'am.
The policy that was attached that Dr. Holmes referenced was policy JIAAA. The policy that should have been attached should have been JIAA, sexual harassment of students. So the policy that's listed on the agenda, JIAA, is the one that we're recommending be rescinded, sexual harassment of students, because we have the comprehensive policy. However, the policy that's attached is JIAAA.
Okay, I'll take my apology right now.
Now, well, what do you know?
Thank you so much, Dr. Franklin.
So, Dr. Holmes, maybe if you have a concern about one of the items, if you would get with staff outside of the board meeting.
I can do that. Okay, but for the record, thank you.
Yeah. Sort of everybody was right and not at the same time. So, thank you for the clarification. All right, item 9.6, human resources update. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have, again, Ms. Williams, our Senior Human Resource Officer, to provide for the board an update for human resources.
Good evening again, and I wore my good shoes. I knew I would be standing here for a little while today. So good evening again, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and the board members, Dr. Davis, and our Richland 2 family. And I know that we're pulling up the presentation here. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to present you an overview of the data in the area of human resources. Tonight's presentation will focus on our certified staff, and I would also like to take the time to highlight some of our employees who not only have been with the district over 40 years, but the exact definition of what it means to be true to two. I would like to recognize my amazing HR team and personally thank each of them for the work that they do to strive to make HR and Richland 2 premier in every way. The question that I have for you tonight is, are you following at R2 Recruits on Twitter? And if you aren't, I ask that you follow us. If so, you may have seen the powerful impact that an assistant principal, Mr. Singleton, at Dent Middle School had on a student. So much so that the student decided to change his career path and now wants to attend an HBCU to become an educator. Not only does he serve as an AP, he serves as a mentor and a coach, but he has also committed to sitting right beside the student as he worked to complete his teacher cadet application. I share this story tonight because it is important to note that with the work we do, when you think no one is watching, we are a reflection of Richland 2. We are all recruiters. Dr. Davis hear me say that all the time. We are all recruiters, and more importantly, ambassadors of the district. I echo the sentiments of this student's mother who shared, "It takes a village," and I'm proud that my son is in Richland too and has Mr. Singleton to look up to. Tonight, it is my pleasure to provide information about our district and what makes us premier. When you take a look at our district, you'll see that our current employees consist of 3,797. The average age is 41, and our average years of experience being at 12 years of service to our district. Let's take a deep dive into our employee experience. You'll notice that majority of our current certified staff falls between 0 and 5 years and 20 plus years of experience. Tonight's focus will be on the certified staff. We will, at a later date, provide information on our classified staff. The Center for Educative Recruitment and Retention and Advancement, also known as SARA, provides a state overview regarding 5-year data on South Carolina teacher departures and South Carolina graduates. The information provided by SARA clearly indicates that what we already know and what we've already heard, what we know that our industry is true to our industry, is that we are facing a teacher shortage. Each year, there are more teachers leaving the profession and less students choosing to major in teacher education program. If you look right here at 2018-19, it shows that 7,339 teachers departed that year. That same year, only 2,171 education majors graduated and entered the profession of education. That was our largest gap of 5,168. I've been requested for a breakdown of those numbers for Richland 2 and the year of 2016-17. At the elementary level, 139 teachers departed. At the middle school level, 78 departed. At the high school level, 80. In 17-18, 117 departed at the elementary level, 85 at the middle, 107 at the high. In 18-19, 130 at the elementary level, at the middle school, 98, and at the high school, 100. And in 19-20, we had 92 at the elementary level, 50 at the middle school, and at the high school, 52. In 2020, we had 51 at the elementary level, and 38 at the middle level, and 46 at the high school level. I'm proud to report that with the teamwork of our school and administration and our district office personnel, our current Richland 2 retention rate is at 87% between the years of 2014 and 2020. When reviewing the data for the past 3 years, as reflected on the slide, you'll notice that our highest retention rate is at the high school level. Ms. Roof and I will be providing some information at a later board meeting where we talk about the value survey that will be presented. So let's talk about the departures. So the next 2 slides will show why people decided to depart from the district. You'll notice, and here you can see where we have did not sign contract, that the disability, return to school to obtain an advanced degree. You will see that at 55.7% was our highest, where persons notified that they were leaving because of personal reasons. If you also take note that we had our next highest is our retirement. So let's talk about retirement. I know you have all remember the Terry program. If you recall, the Terry program ended June 30th of 2018. As you can see, many of our employees participated in this program. In the school year 2017-2018, 100 certified employees retired. The number has decreased of those seeking retirement since the ending of Terry, and those numbers are evident based on 100 being the highest. As I mentioned at the top of the presentation, the SARA data indicates what we already know. There are more teachers leaving the profession statewide and less students choosing to become professional educators. So, what are we going to do to recruit? In HR, it is our responsibility to align our daily activities with the district strategic plan. Recruiting and retention is at the forefront of what we do. Acquiring the best talent for the district relies on cross-departmental collaboration to create pipelines for potential applicants. So some of our specific focus areas that we have are our bus drivers, our middle-level education majors, math, special education, science, and our substitutes. In a recent and successful collaboration to answer the call of our substitute shortage, 42 of our bus drivers are now substituting in our schools each day. We're grateful that they answered the call to work closely with our students. It truly takes a village. And I don't know if you follow us on Twitter or you've seen some of the posts. You've seen where some of our substitutes were teaching. Substitute was actually teaching fractions when a teacher came back in after being given a break. I shared with Dr. Davis, my idea would be that when our bus drivers eventually become one of our classroom teachers, it is going to happen. We're going to speak it into existence. This year and every year, we continually strategize and execute our plan to obtain the best talent. Here's a list of our colleges and university partners with graduating future teachers and virtual recruitment events that we have and will be attending this spring. Additionally, we have our monthly virtual certified recruitment events, and we are hosting our next event. And if anyone is listening, please sign up on Thursday, March the 11th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Make sure you like and repost all our recruitment events on your social media page. Recruiting and showcasing our district is a cross-departmental effort that is going to take all our efforts to show and share that we are a premier district and why we are true to two. So let's talk about some of our retention highlights. What are we doing and what have we implemented in an effort to recruit and retain talent? Richland 2 values our employees and offer an extremely wide variety of voluntary insurance policies, which is optional for employees to purchase, such as pet insurance, which was recently implemented, and I didn't know how excited people would be to have pet insurance, a hospital stay pay, a universal life insurance, and much more. On today, we met with our ward services, and they shared that in the calendar year 2020, employees have received over $900,000 in benefits from our voluntary offerings. In addition, in the recent years, we offered EAP, which is our employee assistance program that is at no cost to our employees and their households. In the last few years, we've implemented the APEC program, our partnership with Columbia College, our Premier 100, Rookie Teacher on the Block, and that's just to name a few. We also have mentors that with our first year teachers. We have Fitbit, which we have focused on financial wellness, health wellness, and programs that we have here to offer. Our AP Academy, our curriculum and instructional support is quite a few list of things that we do here in the district. The highlight of my night tonight is the presentation, is to celebrate those people who've been here for over 40 years. And on the slide here, you have Miss Lottie Chisholm, Teresa Wilson, Miss Donna Martin, and we all call her Mel Cook McDuffie, Evelyn Ayers, William McCormick, also known as Bill McCormick, Nancy Gregory, who's here in the room tonight. We have Shirley Vickery and Joy Oliveri. And I asked them to tell me why are they staying here for 40 years. You don't hear that. People don't stay places for 40 plus years. So here's some comments that I've been provided. I came to Richland 2 in August of 1980 as a brand new school psychologist. I remember so well my experiences those first few weeks. Being overwhelmed by work, feeling uncertain about my skills. The thing I remember most is the skills of my colleagues, the incredible teaching I saw, the way people supported each other, the way people worked in teams. I walked in classrooms and were blown away by the work teachers were doing and the kind of people they were. I worked with principals who brought me into the problem-solving discussion and who had an incredible insight into students. I found that I really enjoyed my colleagues and that I learned from every one of them. Over the years, these people are the reason I stayed. The talented leaders who offer opportunities for growth as employees, the teachers who love working with students, the staff members who bring insight and commitment to their work, the honest, well-informed, problem-solving discussions I have daily with staff, and the commitment to this place as being one that supports students and employees as we learn and grow. I have never regretted my decision to stay, and that came from Shirley Vickery. Nancy Gregory says, because it's a family, the many opportunities and experiences that I have continual thirst for knowledge, and I continue to learn each and every day. Mel Cook McDuffie, she has a goal. And I know that each of us have goals. And I don't know that I have the same goal that Mel has, but her goal is to hold the status as the longest serving employee of the district. She would like to work for 50 years and give 50 years of service here at Richland School District 2. And to conclude, I received a handwritten letter. Most people don't write handwritten notes anymore from Bill McCormick because I sent an email because I wanted to make sure they were okay with me spotlighting them. And it says, "Dear Ms. Williams, thank you so much for the great honor of being recognized as one of the long haulers of Richland 2. Over the course of my career, I've had many teaching positions, every high school and for many years, 3 of them each and every day. Now I'm again honored to be working at the big high school in the sky. It certainly does mean a lot to be honored, validated, and recognized. Truly, I am certain that this is revered by everyone. The value of our people, the loyalty, and the supportive environment is what builds our strength, bonds us together, and makes us premier. With sincere gratitude, Bill McCormick." And tonight, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Scott.
Yes. Ms. Williams, thank you so much for that report. I really enjoyed it, and especially celebrating those who've been in the district 40 plus years. But I just have one question for you. Can you tell us how many exit reports that we receive when staff members leave? What's the percentage of them that turn that back into us? Do we keep a record of that?
I don't have the percentage of those, but I know that Mr. John Arnold can provide that information, and I can provide it in a board brief because we do keep that data on hand. So that is information.
Yeah, I would love to see. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to see the percentage of certified as well as classified. And again, thank you so much for that report. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And congratulations, Dr. Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other board members, questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Agostini.
Thank you so much for your report. I really appreciate it. I was curious, when you were giving those numbers for the 2020, 2021, I'm assuming that's year to date.
It is year to date, February the 19th of 2021.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, thanks. Well, because in one of my concerns why I wanted the human resources update was because I saw the January, and it seemed alarming to me that it was twice as much as the year before. But I mean, looking at the year to date, that might have just, or go ahead.
Well, historically what happens is in December, we send out letters of intent.
Okay.
So that is where people notify us of their intent to either retire, if there's military moves, or they may be getting married. So it's a lot of dynamics that play into a January report, again, based on the letters of intent that do go out prior to winter break. And then they come back in upon our arrival back. That will allow us, that when we have our January recruitment fair, to know where our openings are. So we're then able to go ahead and staff our schools.
Okay, thanks. As we've seen, and tonight we had some breach of contracts, and we've had them throughout unfortunately, the past few months. Where are we in terms of, with the face-to-face instruction, having teachers back in the classroom in terms of, I don't know if you want to call it a fill rate. I don't know if we can even access it. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying properly?
Right. Currently, right now, where we stand as of right now, we have 8 vacancies.
Okay.
And that was as of Monday. So that could have changed, but we have currently 8 vacancies, 8 classroom vacancies for this current school year.
Okay.
We started the year off at a rate of almost 99% fill rate, which was higher than we've started in years. So we were pleased with that.
Okay, and one of my concerns has been, you know, we heard at the end of October during public participation, a lot of teachers that seem to be notified somewhat late of their accommodations not being made for phase 2. Somehow they were under the impression, dealing with, you know, their local or their principal or something, that their accommodations to teach remotely were not going to be met. Do we expect anything different from phase 3? Is there a different process for accommodations?
I think,
Dr. Davis.
yeah, I think we've had an opportunity to address, if I'm not sure, I thought you and I had a conversation regarding that there is no special accommodation request for phase 3. Teachers are expected to return back to work beginning with phase 2. So in phase 3, unless you have an accommodation, and unless an accommodation comes in at this point when we go back to school 5 days face-to-face, then we'll address any additional accommodations as they come in. But as of November the 4th, all teachers were expected to be in the building unless they were given some sort of accommodation that they have requested. So we've had an accommodation, so we've met or have addressed those accommodations requests by our staff at this time.
And I thank you, Dr. Davis, for answering that question. I think that's important for families to know. And so I'd like to take the opportunity to ask that publicly as well. One of the other things that I wanted to hear about was just the bus drivers and where we stand with bus drivers. And the emails in my human resources update request, that was one thing specifically that I was asking about in terms of, because it's been on Facebook now for several months that we're recruiting bus drivers.
Absolutely, and it will continue to be on there because there is a shortage. In the presentation, I did share that there is a shortage area of bus drivers where we are seeking bus drivers that work closely with our communication team to run those ads and those Facebook ads, and they're tailored to certain zip codes where you may see them if you live in this zip code. So we're looking, and if someone is out there listening, we're looking for bus drivers. We are continuing to look for bus drivers.
And I love the creative idea today. Dr. Davis and I were at Catawba Trail, and we did see one of the bus drivers in there subbing, and they said it was really helpful, especially because the bus driver knew most of the kids. But is there anything else that we can do to help recruit bus drivers to stop this shortage?
Well, we're all recruiters. Everyone in this room, we're all recruiters. So when you go out in public or you have your social media platforms, if you reshare and retweet or repost is what we can do. No matter where we go, we have to sell the district. So if you know someone that's looking for a job, just share the opportunities that's available. Share our website, share that we are a premier district that's here in Richland Northeast that are looking for good employees to come and work for us because we are premier.
Dr. Davis, I'll let you speak, but I'd also like to just remind the board that not that long ago, we actually we increased pay for bus drivers. We gave additional bonuses for bus drivers. We provided opportunities such as Dr. Davis stated for subbing, so that there was additional opportunity for pay during downtime during the day. So I know we've in some ways addressed some of the deficits that we saw. And I believe, Ms. Agostine, you were on the board when we did that relatively recently.
Well, it was during Mr. Plank's time, and that's why I'm asking, because it seems to me, while it might be recent to you, to me it seems sort of distant, but you've been on for much longer. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you're saying relative time, but
relative to time, to me, it seems so far away.
Right. So I'm not saying there's not things we need to do, but I do want to remind folks that we did address some of the equity issues and pay and try to do some more, provide additional recruiting tools. Dr. Davis, if you want to add additional comments.
Yeah, I'm going to get Mr. Anderson to speak specifically to the bus drivers. We do have some plans that we've discussed as far as additional recruitment efforts for bus drivers, but I would go off to say that I would all like to add is this is a challenge throughout the state. I mean, we weren't the only school district that was advertising for bus drivers and subs. I think, as a matter of fact, once we did that, many have put out some sort of advertisement for bus drivers and subs, as well as we'll continue to advertise and recruit, of course, teachers, as well as we may need to recruit individuals who in plumbing, carpenters, locksmiths. We are constantly trying to recruit as many staff that we can to this to our school district. Bus drivers have been a challenge, I think, elsewhere. I mean, not elsewhere, everywhere. Right. But I think we've come up with some really creative things. I think what Ms. Williams has just simply said last year, if you remember, the conversation was, how do we recruit more subs? I mean, there's always a group of individuals that there's a focus on. And so, of course, the primary group would be your classroom teachers, because they provide the direct instruction for our students. We've been able to take this really creative approach that we modified and adopted that we've seen around the state. We're fortunate that Ms. Williams has worked in multiple school districts, some rural. I've had an opportunity to work in rural school districts, and we've seen this model used in other school districts where our bus drivers also serve as instructional aides or subs and things like of that nature. We actually tried this, I think, a little bit last year, but we didn't really get the traction last year. But this year, we seem to be getting a lot of traction with our bus drivers helping us in the substitute realm. Maybe it's because we also increased the sub pay during COVID. So in addition to that, we're hoping that more bus drivers would take advantage of it next year. But I think Mr. Anderson can speak specifically to some of the efforts that we've done to try to recruit bus drivers and why maybe there's a challenge there in the gap between what we need and how many bus drivers we have. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And we do work collaboratively with Ms. Williams and her team. But a lot of the things that we're doing is things that they are aware of, but we have the more inside information or expertise on that. We did collaborate with communications and running those Facebook ads and paying for those. And we've seen a much higher increase of those results. So we're going to continue doing that with Dr. Riley and Libby's office. Continue those ads if we've seen a lot more people come in. I appreciate Mr. Manning's talking about the pay. We do pay one of the highest, if not the highest in the state. So the whole state is having an issue with recruitment of bus drivers, so it's not a issue with Richland too. We recently just hired, probably a month or so ago now, a new training and safety manager who part of that responsibility is recruitment. She comes from us from Lexington, but also has experience with the state, and so we're happy to bring her ideas. We also are doing more pushing out information instead of pulling. So we've got ideas such as going to different events, taking our buses and putting them at different places, looking at more strategic ways like the Facebook ads to hit that market. One of the things for retention purposes that we're really focusing on as well is working with Mr. Smith, Dr. Helen Grant, and some others in our department to really help with the understanding of our riders and the challenges of making sure our bus drivers can build those relationships with those students, and working on with our schools on the matrix of behavior management piece. Some of the things that really, as we survey our drivers, one thing that pops up a lot is maybe perhaps you got 70 kids in the back of the bus, and behavior is an issue that comes up. And so making sure that they have the tools to be successful, and those have been some strategies that we've seen that have worked. And just to piggyback on what Dr. Davis says, we've gotten so much positive impact from our bus drivers who have been in schools. Principals are so thankful. I will say, I believe it has a lot to do with this year and COVID. A lot of those drivers in a normal year, this time of year, are hitting the zoo, you name whatever field trip. And so they're all over the place. So last year when we tried it, we had low member turnout because they were everywhere doing all the activities we had going on during the middle of the year. So now they get a chance to get extra pay because we're not doing those trips. But we hope with the positive feedback, we can continue this, continue recruiting drivers. So we still have enough drivers to get our kids to all the great experiences next year, but also fill in that gap. So thank you, Dr. Davis.
Well, I want to say thank you for addressing the discipline issue as well, because that is something we also heard from students. I know the board, Dr. Scott will probably remember that we addressed that we wanted to hear from the district that student discipline was in fact being addressed on the buses the same way it was in the schools. There were some disparities at the time, so I'm glad we're continuing to work on those issues.
Mr. Norton, our Director of Transportation, meets with Mr. Smith regularly and meets with Dr. Grant and others. So we're very much that's a very priority for our bus drivers, our transportation department.
Thank you. All right, other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Ms. Williams. I appreciate the report. Thank you. All right, we now have an update on the state assessments for 2021. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, to our viewing public, and those of you that are in attendance. We have Dr. John Arnold, who's going to share with us this evening our state assessment presentation for the March 9th, 2021 school board meeting. Dr. Arnold.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Mr. Manning, Dr. Davis, members of the board, it is my pleasure to provide you with a brief update on South Carolina state assessments for the 2021 school year. We're going to begin by looking back. In June 26th of 2020, the Act 142 was signed into law. Among other things, this act required school districts to resume the administration of assessments needed to meet student individual learning needs. It also required that districts begin to prepare for federally mandated and state mandated accountability assessments. As the fall semester began, one of the first requirements of this act was the administration of both a pre and post assessment that included all students in kindergarten through 9th grade. The pre-assessment had to be completed in the first 10 days of the school year, and the post-assessment had to be completed prior to the end of 2020. Now, the kindergarten readiness assessment met the pre- and post-assessment requirement for our kindergarten students and was already a required assessment. We administered NWEA's Measures of Academic Progress, or MAP, to meet the requirement for students in 1st through 9th grade. And as you know, Richland 2 has administered MAP to 2nd through 8th grade students in the fall for many years. Now, we typically do not administer the MAP until after the 10th day of school, so this year's administration did come a bit sooner. Other than the timing of the administration and the addition of the 1st and 9th grade, this was not a new administration for our district. However, the large-scale administration of the winter MAP was a new assessment. As the fall progressed, we resumed the administration of those assessments needed to meet individual students' needs, including addressing learning difficulties, language barriers, and giftedness. We also administered some of the assessments required under our accountability laws. Students normally take the ACT or the SAT or the ACT as their college readiness exam, and the Ready to Work tests as their career ready assessment in the spring of their 3rd year. Since that did not happen for many of our students, they were given the opportunity to do so this fall. We have also since resumed the administration of these tests for our 3rd year students this spring. Students who completed a first semester course that has a required end of course exam took those tests in December and January. As a reminder, the state requirement that we count those exams as 20% of the student's final grade was lifted. In Richland 2, we gave the students the opportunity to improve their grade by only including the test scores if it helped their course grade. We're also currently administering the Access for Els Test for our English language learner students, and this test is used to measure growth in language proficiency over time. As we look ahead to the spring, we are preparing for the administration of the other major accountability assessments. This includes the SC Ready Test of English, Language Arts, and Math for students in 3rd through 8th grade, the SC Pass Science Test for students in 4th and 6th grade, and the end of course exams for students taking Algebra 1, Biology, English 2, and United States History and Constitution. I also want to make you aware of 2 waivers that we have received regarding the administration of 2 of these accountability assessments. First, based on the recommendation of our middle school principals, we requested and received a waiver from the requirement to administer the SC Ready tests online. So this year, our middle school students will take the traditional paper pencil version of that test. And second, we requested and received a waiver from the requirement that the test be administered in the final 20 days of the school year. We have 10 additional days, so we will be completing those assessments within the final 30 days. The administration of the state accountability assessments will likely be more challenging than it has been in previous years. We will have moved into phase 3 well before these tests begin, so most of our students will already be attending school face-to-face. However, we will still have a substantial percentage of our students who will be attending school virtually. State accountability assessments must be administered face-to-face, so these students will have to come to school. Now, please note that is not a Richland 2 decision, that is a state requirement. We will, of course, be maintaining social distancing to the greatest extent possible in phase 3. Now, this may limit the number of students that can be on campus at one time. District and school administrators are considering the best way to use every person and every space on campus. We're considering the use of spaces that we normally would not use for testing, including libraries, gyms, and cafeterias. We're considering the use of additional dividers in classrooms and spaces where 6 feet of social distancing is not possible. We'll be training staff who are not normally involved in testing to do so. And we're also considering the option of scheduling the tests over a longer period of time than in a normal school year. And that's why we requested that waiver for the 10 additional days. As has always been the case, SC Ready and SC Pass requires an all-hands-on-deck approach at our elementary and middle schools. And as has always been the case, the teachers who are administering the tests cannot also be teaching their classes. Now this year, this means that students who are not present in school for testing may have to participate in at least some asynchronous e-learning activities. And finally, the Richland School District 2 E-program presents some unique challenges. If all of its students were to be present, the program lacks sufficient space and staff to test everyone at the same time. While taking the state assessments is not optional, we do recognize the reality that many parents are not comfortable bringing their students to school to participate in a test. This fact may allow our e-school students to participate in testing within the e-school program itself. However, if the number of students that are coming to school to participate in testing exceeds their capacity, those students will have to be tested in their home zone schools. Our goal, of course, is to minimize the number of days required for testing as well as the number of days required for asynchronous learning while maintaining a safe environment. We're being creative and doing our best thinking outside of the box to meet the assessment requirements without compromising student and staff health. Unfortunately, there are still more questions than answers regarding state and federal accountability. You may recall that on November 20th, the State Department of Education for South Carolina submitted a waiver request to the United States Department of Education. Now, if granted, the assessments, accountability, and reporting requirements would be waived for the 2020-21 school year. In addition, the South Carolina Department of Education also submitted an addendum to the original waiver on February 1st. This addendum asked that the requirement to issue ratings based on the accountability assessments be waived for the 2021 school year if that original waiver from the assessments was not granted. As of today, South Carolina Department of Education has not received a response to either the waiver or to the addendum request. So as a result, Richland 2 teachers and administrators are continuing to prepare our students to be successful on these assessments. And at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Board members, questions or comments? I mean, it
Mr.
sounds
Chair?
like, sorry, Ms. Agostini.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Arnold. I'm curious about the testing that we've already done, the evaluations that we've done, and what have we seen? And when I ask this is not to hold somebody accountable, not the student, not the teacher, not administration, but to realize, or what has been the impact? What have we seen based upon the tests that we've administered in Richland 2 of how this has all impacted us?
Many of the assessments that we've given, particularly the state required assessments for gifted and talented, things like that, we don't have results back from those assessments yet.
Okay.
Not from all of them. But we do have results from the fall and winter MAP administrations. One of the things that we use our MAP administrations for is to predict the performance of students on SC Ready and SC Pass. Over the years, NWEA has worked with the South Carolina Department of Education to produce some correlation tables that show, based on a student's MAP performance, how they would be projected to perform on SC Ready. What we know is that traditionally, our students perform better on the actual SC Ready than what MAP would predict. We also know that this year, the predictions are down. In other words, our students are not predicted to do as well as they have been in the past. That's concerning, but again, we traditionally perform better than what MAP would predict. In addition, we have had instances that we're aware of where there was some some performance inflation, some assistance provided by parents perhaps. We don't really have a way to gauge how widespread that is. And for those reasons, we are really limiting the use of our MAP administrations for making any types of, certainly not any placements or recommendations for student placement in courses, but also we're limiting our uses of it for making predictions on performance.
Thank you. And I wonder if Dr. Davis wouldn't mind, you had made a comment a couple of times as we visited some schools about opportunity, I think, for instruction versus opportunity for learning. Where people have thought that there's been a loss, you've said in response to
Yeah.
Okay.
So my statement has been that we should not buy into the narrative or accept the narrative that there's a loss of learning. I would think it would be, we should expect that our students will not perform this year as they performed pre-COVID. If our students perform this year at the level they performed pre-COVID, then during pre-COVID, we weren't doing enough. Clearly, we weren't doing enough. So what I've been sharing is what we're trying to do is recapture instructional time. What we've lost is the instructional time. There's 180 days of instruction during a school year. The expectation is 1 year academic growth per 180 days of instruction. That's what we've been missing since March, is consistent direct instruction over that time period. And even as we started back during the school year, one of the fortunate things that we chose to do, which was different for us, is to have our dual modality approach. We realized that dual modality would be challenging for our teachers in the beginning, but what it benefited our kids was that they got direct instruction for 4 consecutive days throughout the school year while we were virtual. And now that our elementary students are back in school 5 days a week, they're now able to start the process of recapturing some of that lost instructional time. And so that's the focus for us in Richland 2, is to how do we recapture instructional time? Because we understand and we can easily predict that our students will not perform, but should not perform at the same level as they did last year. Some will without a doubt. There will be a percentage of our students that will. But for many, there's a high possibility they will not, because they have not gotten the direct instruction. And that's how you know how valuable teachers are, because they are the best. The quality of the teacher in the classroom, you can expect high performance, a better performance from your students based on the quality of the teacher in the classroom and direct instruction.
Thank you. Dr. Holmes?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you for a very detailed report. Having been a former test coordinator, I know the headaches that you are facing, especially with this having to maybe test people online. I don't know how you're going to do that. But anyway, I did want to just say this for our high schoolers, and for the parents that may not know, that many of the colleges, because of the situation that we're facing right now, many of the colleges are waiving the SAT and the ACT requirements for admission. So for those parents of seniors who may be stressing, like how you're gonna get this score up, a lot of the colleges, so just check with your high school counselor or your CDFs or whoever's in charge of that at the individual schools, that many of the colleges are actually waiving the SAT and ACT requirements. I'm sitting here thinking, because I work in a school too, and I'm a former test coordinator, I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm just praying that we do get this waiver that's up for grasp. But thank you for a very, very detailed report. But I wanted parents of seniors to give them a little bit of relief and let them know there is some hope at the end of the rainbow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Certainly challenging with last minute uncertainty up to the last minute as to what's required, what's not, and how we're going to achieve that. So thank y'all and everyone involved for the effort there. Thanks. All right, we now have item 10.1, the draft agenda for March 23rd, 2021. Dr. Davis.
Mr. Chair, to the members of our board, viewing public, and those public that is in attendance, we are prepared to review the draft agenda for the March 23rd, 2021 regular scheduled board meeting. That board meeting will be called to order at 5:30, where we will go into executive session. In executive session, we tentatively have the items listed: student appeals, student admission requests into the district's adult ed. We'll exit executive session for the start of public session at 6 p.m., where we'll have the inspirational moment and pledge of allegiance. Ask for the approval of the agenda, followed by the approval of the consent agenda. We'll have our first public participation at 6.1, followed by our voting on executive session items at 7. Which will be student appeals and student admissions requests into the district's adult ed program. Right now, we have old business action requested. These are the policies that we presented to you today. That will be policy GBGAB, GCOA, the approval of our Title IX, which is the rescinding of GBAA and JIAA, and also asking for the approval from the board from the budget, the proposed plan for the budget surplus. Following that, we'll have new business action requested, which will be suspension of policy JFABB, admission of exchange and international students. We'll have new business, no action requested, which will be our superintendent's highlights, a report on school start times, as well as a report on the second quarter financial. Following that, we'll have present agenda items for the April 13th, 2021 board meeting. Ask for the approval of those agenda items, which will be followed by public participation number 2, board and superintendent comments, executive session 2 if needed, voting on executive session 2 items if needed, and adjournment.
All right, the agenda's been presented, or is there any discussion?
You have to have a motion.
I'm sorry, we're not on, this is the draft agenda, so we're on the draft agenda, we're not up for the for the approval yet. This is discussion of the draft agenda. Correct? Because this item is just the draft agenda. So yeah, because we're not voting on it at this point until we get to the next item. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, we're still on the draft agenda. Is there any discussion on the draft agenda?
I was wondering if I can make a motion, if that's the time to do that now.
Yes, go ahead and make a motion.
I would like to make a motion for a presentation on the dual class mass action lawsuit. I would like the presentation to, about the company and the product that it produces, how the company advertises and promotes products to attract children to purchase or use, how their products affect the physical, mental, and overall health and well-being of our children, how their product and its effects on children impact the school and the education system, and why Richland School District 2 should align with other districts to join the lawsuit.
Okay. And is there, when would you like, what date would you like to see that added to?
I believe that a good date would be April the 13th.
Okay, so your motion is to approve that for the April 13th meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Ms. McFadden, seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any discussion on that motion? With no discussion, all raise your right hand or say aye, or voice vote. Dr. Scott?
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Agostini, I can't see you down there. Okay, or abstain. So I have one abstain. All right, motion passes 6 yes, 1 abstain. All right, any other discussion on the draft agenda? All right, with that, we will move on to approval of the draft agenda for March 23rd. So please keep in mind that the motion made by Ms. McFadden is not for this agenda. So the agenda is as it was presented by Dr. Davis for the 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda for the March 23rd, 2021 board meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Mackey?
I move to approve the draft agenda items for March 23rd, 2021.
Motion's been made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McFadden. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Do you want voice vote? Okay, we'll do online voting for that then. We'll take the vote. Motion passes 6 yes, 1 no. All right, we have our second public participation, which we have no one signed up. Board and superintendent comments. I'm going to start with Dr. Scott.
Just want to say thank you to all of you that presented this evening. Thank you for your detailed report. Would love for Dr. Miley to try to get that bonus information into the board prior to spring break. I know those educators would love to have that money prior to their spring break. I'd love to get that in if possible. Also, I would love for us to have an opportunity to have a workshop coming up for Robert Rules, if we can try to get that on point, Dr. Davis, just sometime this summer, if possible. And again, just want to encourage everyone to continue to be safe, stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, and just have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Agostini.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Dr. Shealy for your inspirational moment tonight. That really was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you to Service Solutions for your continued commitment to our students and our districts. And a big, big thank you to all of those with their 40 years of service and your continued commitment to Richland too. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden. Will you turn your mic on, Ms. McFadden? Thank you.
I'll keep it short and sweet this time. Thank y'all and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Ms. Mackey, yeah, you didn't get it.
As a nod to Dr. Shealy's wonderful and thoughtful, inspirational moments, there are several moments there. Just want to thank the people in this room, Dr. Davis, your staff, teachers, all of the folks who work together to care about our students, their families, teachers, staff members, community. These are tough times. They are getting better, but they are still tough times. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing, doing your very best. Everyone is doing their part, and that doesn't go unnoticed. The policies, I just wanted to say, this is going through those policies that come from the School Board Association or that we do, that's hard work. There's the team of people that sift through those policies and decipher them and provide us with meaningful information. I appreciate that. I know that's a tough job. For the HR report, Dr. Arnold, all the reports that we've had tonight, the assessments, we appreciate your coming before us and taking the time to prepare that to bring that before us. But everyone else, stay safe. Thank you for those who've got to be here and for those who choose to be here and online. We appreciate you. Bless you. Y'all stay safe.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Dr. Carter-Parker.
I too would like to thank Dr. Shealy for the inspirational moment. That was really very nice, very nice. And I can't believe you've got 45 years and you're younger than me and I don't have 45 years. It's just one of those things. And thank you again to the superintendent for the superintendent highlights. I really enjoyed those tremendously. Service Solution, I will never forget, 25 years ago, I was principal at Denton Middle School and was furious that here we were going with contractual service with Service Solution, and they did not pick Dent, the oldest school in the district, built in 1926, and they did not pick Dent to have the Service Solutions out there. But everything turned out all right. Got a new building, everything's fine. And also just want to thank everyone for your reports and all the folks who were recognized this evening in the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes.
Okay, I'd like to first of all say thank you, Dr. Shealy, for that wonderful inspiration today. And also thank you because you were my daughter's principal when she was at North Springs Elementary. So I really appreciate you. Courtney really loved you. And also thank you to everybody for all the reports. There was a lot of efforts put into all of the reports that were tonight. They were very inclusive and informative. And congrats to all the 40-year-long people in the district. I am not too far behind you guys. I'm gonna give this up sooner or later, but I'm not at 40 yet, but I hope to get to 40. And congrats to all of the award winners tonight. And I have to say this, I'm so glad that for the bonuses, for the whole entire district, the teachers, the bus drivers, the students. I'm grateful that we're absolutely able to do that. I know the board has been so excited about having that, and the superintendent's office. We've all been so excited about doing that. This is tough times, and you all have stuck in there, and we appreciate you, and I just can't thank you enough, so you deserve these bonuses. I hate that it's taxed that high percentage, but it is what it is. Okay, and also, this is Women's History Month. So I'm gonna toot a little bit of our own history. This is the first time, I believe, in Richland School District 2 history that we've had this many women on a board. So congratulations to my fellow colleagues. This is, to have this many women, and, some people say, oh my God, all these women. But you know what, we're going to show you that women as well as men can run a school district, and I think we're doing an effective job like that. And to everyone else, have a great, great evening. Thank you.
Dr. Davis.
I have to chuckle like that. Of course, I have 3 daughters and a wife, so
yeah,
I know exactly what that's like. I've been prepared for this moment my entire adult life. I just want to start out by first thanking my staff, who do an outstanding, excellent job. Every department who works hard to present and prepare presentations. We collaborate a lot prior to presentations to try to make sure that we cover as many angles and points that we need to cover to be informative, not only to our board, but to our community. To the staff that is here in the production, who make sure that our board meetings go off without a hitch, that our community can stay connected with us even through COVID. And also in the preparations of getting everything ready for board meetings on every other Tuesday. So I do appreciate you all for your hard work and your efforts, and celebrating those employees who have 40 years of excellence and then plus years excellence in our district, but also those who have made this their home and have that longevity. As you saw, the vast majority of our employees fall in two categories for the report: 0 to 5 years and then 20 plus years. So we know where the challenges are with the 0 to 5 years, and that is definitely in the recruiting area, the issue. But in that retention side of 20 plus years, we have a good number of teachers and employees in our district that have stayed with us for 20 plus years and continue to work with us in the school district and provide valuable services to our students and to our community. So thank you to them, to all of those teachers and those employees in our district that are still a valuable part of our school district. I am excited as well about the opportunity to provide bonuses for our staff, all employees, including our part-time employees and our full-time employees. And we did something a little bit different this year. We did, with intention, increase the amount so that they would get the full $1,000 bonus, or the full $500 bonus. I shouldn't say $500 bonus. And because last year when we did it, that did not happen. It was taxed. And so we made we were intentional about ensuring that they would get the full amount of the bonus that they were due in such hard times that they all have experienced. I should say, challenging and different times. We really are working on framing what we say, challenging and different times for us, because tough people can handle tough things, and we're doing a phenomenal job of doing that. I do want to say thank you to Dr. Miley, Ms. Williams, and Dr. Arnold for your outstanding, thorough presentations as well. And last, I want to celebrate the fact that we work collaboratively to advocate for vaccinations for our staff and our employees of our school district. We wish we could have pushed that time up and got them done earlier, but we do have a coordinated and scheduled time with our partners at Providence, and we're excited and looking forward to doing that, providing that service to our employees in our school district. And we want to thank our parents for being understanding when we asked them to allow us to have the asynchronous days to allow our employees to be vaccinated. We haven't gotten very few questions about that. Our parents are truly understanding about that as we get ready to transition to go into offering 5 days a week. And the last thing, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I just want to say, recognizing what we started out with the HR presentation, that we are all recruiters of our school district. It starts from the very, very top. It starts in the community. How our community presents us to other people, to their peers, to their families, to their friends who are looking to move and buy a home. People call people they know first, and they ask those questions. So the recruiting starts in the community and goes to the board and comes to the administration and goes down to the teachers and goes down to the students and our business partners. We are all part of the recruitment and the retention efforts of the school district. No one is let off the hook when it comes to that responsibility. And I'm so excited that it's evident when, even in the midst of the global pandemic, even in the midst of all the challenges, even in the midst of all the things that we were placed before this year, Ms. Williams reported we had a 99% fill rate, 8 vacancies during this time in this era of teacher. And we've had an 87% retention rate for 6 years in the midst of the highest work shortage when it comes to teachers in this state and probably in this country in a long time. And we're continuing to do that. But in order for us to continue that and increase and improve on that, we all have to have, as we like to say, an agency in this effort, which means we own it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I too have been preparing with all women in the household, grew up with a single mother, and I've worked for more female bosses, including currently, than I've ever worked for male bosses. I didn't know I was in training for this, but apparently that's what I was learning. I am blessed. I've been extremely blessed. Trust me. And I do want to say, I know, we had a great HR presentation. Thank you, Ms. Williams. There's been a lot of challenges, and Dr. Shealy mentioned that, everyone really is trying to do their best. So I know there's been some critical moments where folks have stated, I think the word was used, some information was given late on accommodations to teachers. I think that's a matter of perspective. I appreciate Dr. Davis and staff working. The notice we've given. As a state employee, I found out Tuesday that all state employees are mandated to go back Monday full-time, 5 days a week. So when we talk about lack of communication and the way not to do it, I think that's late communication. When you, regardless of your health conditions, social distancing, no telecommuting whatsoever, if you didn't telecommute prior to COVID, that's a lack of working with staff, lack of preparation, lack of vision. And we have not done that in this district. There's been a lot of planning. Plans of frameworks have been put forth. We followed those frameworks. And nothing's perfect. There's always issues and things that could be done better because there is no, you can't plan for issues like this, but at least it's not like that. So I appreciate the work that I do with this district in administration, that I think we treat folks much better than that. And I certainly appreciate that. Thank you for everyone for your evening. If I can have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A motion made by Ms. Mackey. Do I have a second? Seconded by Dr. Holmes. All in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.